Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video. Today I've got the Hogue EX01. This is the aluminum handle, OD green with the drop point stone-washed blade. There are a number of variations of this knife available, as well as a number of different Hogue models, EX02, 03, 04. There's quite a bit of variation available in sort of a similar vein to this from Hogue. Let's go ahead and give you a size and weight, and then we'll go ahead and get right into the close-up version of this. Okay, so overall, this blade is just, and I mean just under 9 inches. The blade is 4 inches, basically the handle is 5 inches, so and the blade is actually just a teeny bit under 4 inches, which is why this doesn't quite reach the 9-inch mark. And the weight on this is 5.6 ounces, so not the end of the world at all, especially for a knife of this size. Okay, so that's the size and weight and a bit of an introduction for you. Of course, what I'd love to hear from you in the comments below are what experience you have with Hogue knives. This is the only one I've had, so if you've had a lot of them, maybe you've tried every single version that they make, go ahead and comment below, because there'll be people looking at this who might benefit from something you'll say down there. Let's go ahead now and switch over to a little closer view of this knife. All right, so here we are a little closer up to this Hogue EX01. You can take a close look at it there. You can see the very attractive OD green aluminum handle, the massive pocket clip, and that very nicely stone-washed blade. And there's the button lock for you. Now, the way we normally do this is to start with the blade and talk about that and kind of work our way down from there. So let's do that here. As you can see, you got a stone-washed blade, drop point, 154 cm, and I will say the edge geometry on this is very nice and thin. This is a knife that will definitely do a lot of great slicing for you, while still, if you look back here, being thick enough and strong enough that it could definitely fill some harder use tasks or roles as well. All right, so I've had quite good luck with this blade. I've done quite a bit of cutting with it and been very happy with it. Really like the look of this stonewash. The only thing about this knife that puts me off a little is notice the location of the belly. It's only sort of a very small belly, and it just kind of is very abrupt. I would have liked to see this kind of stretched out maybe over a longer distance here. Puts me in mind maybe a little bit of the Rat Model 1 or something like that. Not that it's an issue, or not that I've had any problems cutting anything or anything because of that shape. Just not a preferred way to pull that off for me. All right, now the blade on this one is not doing a lot of exciting stuff. 154 cm is going to be good performing steel, but certainly not the best thing that you can get out there. You know, the reality is though, for 99% of people, it's going to be more than sufficient. It's certainly going to hold an edge for multiple days or even weeks of use, especially if you're not using your knife all the time for your job or whatever. If you're just taking it out and making a few cuts a day, strop it at the end of the day, you're going to get really good edge retention out of 154 cm. Now let's move on to lockup and deployment. I'm going to switch to the back of the knife here so you can kind of see this functioning. We've done this once before or twice. This is, of course, a button lock. And button locks are really good because of the fact that they take up very little space. And we've had that discussion before, so I'm not going to rehash all of that. But I will say that they do have a weak point, which is if they're not pretty precisely done, you'll get some blade play, and it's not really blade play you can do anything about by adjusting. Now this one is precisely done, and any knife in this price point or above, you're not likely to have problems with your button lock knives, but the more budget friendly ones, you can sometimes get some up and down blade play because of the size of that piece that extends out there from the back of the button. So this one works very well. Of course, it is a very strong lock type and a very reliable one. Also, as lots of people have pointed out, it's a fun lock type because of the fact that you can just push the button down and fold that blade down. So if you're the kind of person who wants to, kind of play with your knives while you're watching TV or whatever, a button lock will be very appealing. Let me say, while we're on the subject of lockup and deployment, that this knife is very smooth and it opens up very fast, but I had the worst time getting it to that point consistently. I had to really adjust this, and once it was adjusted to be just exactly right, it had a tendency to come loose, and I'd have to retighten it and get it back to where I wanted it, and then it would be fine for a short time. I tried a couple of different methods before I finally got this to stick. So I did have a little bit of an adventure getting this blade adjusted, or getting this pivot screw adjusted just the way I wanted it and keeping it there. Now that it's there, I haven't had any problems, but it was just a little bit of trouble kind of along the way there. Now the other thing I want to say about this this pivot, outside of the fact that it was a little difficult to get in the right spot, is I want to point out the safety here. Now this safety works by stopping the button from being able to be depressed. Okay, so that means you can't unlock the knife. It's stuck. Undo the safety, the knife unlocks fine. Now, the opposite does not work because of the way a button lock works. This safety does nothing to keep you from opening the knife, but now that you have it engaged and you open the knife, guess what? It locks it open. And I have had this, because of its location, if you're sitting there playing with the knife and you push the button, I've had this it doesn't take much, just a slight touch, and it'll pop forward, and now when I go to close this, I can't close it. So I have had that deploy, or the safety be engaged, when I didn't intend to or didn't mean to. It's not the end of the world. Your knife is already open, so usually you have time to figure out what's going on, finally figure out, oh wait, I accidentally touched the safety, turn it off and close the knife. But it can, just because of the location and because how easily it engages, that can happen. Not the end of the world, but worth noticing. And I'm not going to do anything, but people have before Loctited those safeties in the open position, and that's true of every knife that has a safety of any kind on it. So that's about the only real, and they're fairly minor complaints that I have about this. Once I kind of got things worked out, I have had no problems with this knife and really enjoyed it. And it does work very well. The lock is extremely solid, extremely fast. All the things that we kind of want to see out of a lock on a modern folding knife. Let's keep going here and start talking about this handle. This is the aluminum handled version of this, very attractive OD green, very comfortable in hand, and it does have good traction, and the traction is sort of, if you go on any specific point of the jimping on this knife, it doesn't feel super sharp, but sort of all of it combined comes together to actually give you a fairly positive grip, as well as does the overall shape of this knife. Really locks you in well. So definitely good traction. You could definitely use this for either hard use tasks where you're going to be getting sweaty or dirty and worrying about dropping it, or in more of sort of a combat, tactical kind of role where you're concerned about retention. Either case, it's going to work out pretty well. Also, the button lock is helpful for certain situations where you're wearing gloves, especially more awkward gloves. I was able to deploy that lock with a pair of just heavy leather work gloves. So they're not even the nice form-fitting gloves that people wear for shooting or other things like that. They're just really awkward, bulky gloves. But because you just have to get that button pushed in, that was very much appreciated on the sort of ergonomic side of things. Now, something that wasn't very appreciated is this. For such a great knife, and for a knife that seems to be trying to pay some attention to looks, like this is not an ugly knife. It's very nicely done, and on this side you can see really attractive. Then you flip it over and you're like, what is that monstrosity? You've got this absolutely horrible spoon-shaped clip on there that is truly ugly. Not sure what Hogue was thinking on this. Maybe they wanted to differentiate themselves, and they've certainly done that. But that clip is very, very ugly. It is reversible from tip up to tip down, but not to left side carry. And I don't really know, maybe someone could comment below pointing out whether or not they make a left-handed version of this, or Hogue knives in general. Pretty well all I wanted to say about that. The handle, again, quite comfortable in hand, and even that pocket clip, although it's massive and absolutely hideous, it does not create a hot spot or anything like that, which is very appreciated. The other thing I should say before we move away from the ergos is I'm really, really happy to see a nice little thumb rest there, and you can actually choke up on this knife and get some finer detailed work done. Now I wouldn't want to use this grip all the time because yeah, there is a potential to slide forward, but if you're doing sort of fine controlled work, then not such a big deal. Also, by the way, that thumb rest works well even if you're holding the knife in a more traditional saber grip like that. Still gives you a good spot for your thumb to purchase the back of the blade there. Overall, I think this is a good knife. I think Hogue has done a great job. This is an earlier knife of theirs, and I do appreciate what they've done here. There are a few other models that I may want to check out from them. Before we move on, let's throw in some sort of competitive options here, because there are quite a few knives that I feel like would kind of fall into this sort of hard use tactical role. First off being the Recon 1. Now the Hogue is considerably more expensive, even though the Recon 1 I would say is just as useful, and the steel is actually better on the Recon 1, and I kind of prefer the blade shape. Over here I've got the Benchmade Proxy 928. These are all, larger size knives, which is why I'm kind of sharing them with you. Again, very big, very tough, very capable blade for a lot of different situations, which is how I see the Hogue. The Hogue is a kind of knife that I would say, hey, if there's a lot of versatility and utility here. How about a ZT-0560? Similar size, similar role as well. Sort of a fairly hard use, fairly combat-oriented blade. What else have we got here? Here's another ZT-0200. Again, same steel here. These, of course, are discontinued, but still fairly widely available. And both of these are knives that I really like. At one time, they probably would have been closer in price point, but now these days you can pick these up for around $130 or so. Aluminum handled knives, I do have the Cold Steel Code 4. It is a little smaller, but this knife is also available in a smaller version with a 3.5-inch blade instead of a 4-inch blade. So this would be maybe more comparable to the 3.5-inch bladed Hogue. Sorry, I'm switching out the wrong knife there. And I thought I had one. Oh yeah, one more. Again, this is fairly tactical oriented blade, the Emerson CQC 15. Again, same steel, the 154 cm steel. So there's quite a few options, and there's all of those knives land at different price points around this. I will say, for what you're getting at aluminum handle and 154 cm steel, the price on these guys is a little high. I think it's around 200 bucks. I didn't pay that for this one, but that's kind of what these go for, and maybe that's a little steep, okay? Otherwise, though, great knife, very well built, very, capable. This is one of the knives in my collection, along with a number of the other ones that I just have been showing you there. These are all knives that I kind of take with me when I never know, hey, what's going to happen today? I want a knife that can really just handle about anything you could think of. And all of those are knives that fit that category. Certainly this one is as well. Great, versatile, large knife that can really take pretty well anything you could think to throw at it. All right, hope you enjoyed the video, and we will talk to you soon.